I love the picture of that little bird. How many of you feed the birds at your house or see them nearby? Have you had a few of the fall returnees? Have you? We had a flicker yesterday. That's a sure sign, isn't it? And a couple of woodpeckers. Anybody else got the woodpeckers back? And yes, aren't they lovely? They wake you up early. And then a few of the joncos are here. It's a sign, isn't it? The weather may still be warm, but the birds know the advancing seasons. That would be a pine siskin, a finch. Who knows what that bird is? Yes, what do you think, Moira? Oh, okay. You see, this is like bidding at an auction. You clear your throat and you suddenly own a painting. Yeah. This is our last day with these beautiful beings behind us, and what a tremendous gift they've been. Chatting before the service, I think that she is my favorite, the dancing pea pod. Well, at least that's what it is to me. Although when I sing loudly, I can make the dandelion move, which is also kind of fun. So today we're talking about Thanksgiving in a very complicated time for our world. Years ago, when I was on Bowen Island, Lynn Williams and I sang together a duet. Lynn is a tremendous soprano. I first met her when she was singing the soprano part in Messiah at St. Andrew's Wesley United Church, Vancouver. And we sang together a song from Josh Groban's Christmas album. Now, you know, in church you're usually safe, well, as long as there's enough kind of religious language in it. But this Christmas album contained the song called Thankful, probably 25 years ago when Josh was first out. Do you remember that album, Noel? And the song was Thankful. And the reason why we chose it was it has, and I'm not remembering the words exactly, but the idea that in spite of all there is for us that we're supposed to be doing, and we could be doing so much more, Josh Groban sang, still, there's so much to be thankful for. And I thought that is just where we are again to this year, isn't it? There's so much going on that is of concern. And yet, because of the fact that we're in the Northern Hemisphere and that this is Thanksgiving, the time of harvest, we're encouraged, asked, and invited to think about gratitude. And of course, that little green bird helps us. So we heard the reading, thank you, Leanne, about worry. Now, I have to tell you, it's ironic for a minister to ever preach about worry, because preaching is horrendously worrying. You know, not many of us sleep well Saturday nights when we're preaching. So here we are, sounding convinced about worry, sleep deprived. I just wanted to honestly say that. So, with so many things going on, our bells still ring at noon or toll at noon for the Ukraine war. We know about the young person who died on our church steps of a fentanyl overdose. We are not naive about the realities of the world. And yet, Jesus talked to us this morning and offered us a teaching, just as an offer, just a suggestion, it's not a requirement, to examine some certain parts of our life and to see if we can add a richer understanding to them in our day. And so he's talking about worry, but I have to tell you, I think this is about as difficult as when he says to forgive people who hate you. You know, I think it's easier for me personally, and maybe you're like this too, when they say don't kill, you go, I'm with you. I will not kill. I can say that quite so. I have never done that. Not even slightly, no charges against me. No, do not kill, yes. Don't worry, well, now that's a little harder. Now we're talking nuance. What do you mean exactly by worry? Because Jesus is not talking about the crippling anxiety disorders that people have. He's talking about the freedom of choice of where we put our thinking. He talks about that elsewhere. The Bible is full of it, that as a man thinketh, use old language. So as we think, we've been given this freedom to direct our minds to the ends of our own choice. And here Jesus is saying, so let's just consider that. When you direct your mind of your free choice to worry, so he says, let's just talk about that. And it's bang, 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 bang. But there's 4 main things I wanted to just highlight with you, and you heard it, such a beautiful lesson. One, I think, that's been well known. First of all, he talks about food and clothing, your lifespan. Then he talks about tomorrow. 1, 2, 3, 4. So the first one I want to think about is clothing. So it's not that he's saying about the people who don't have enough clothing to be warm. That's not the question. He's talking about what are we trying to achieve with our clothing, because he says the teaching is if you're trying to make a good first impression, don't try. You cannot control what another person thinks. This is a hard lesson. And of course, the fashion industry doesn't even agree with it. But you could be dressed in your very best plaid and someone walks by who hates Scots. So there you go. You're hooped. You're thinking you're looking good. They've written you off. We cannot control, with all our efforts on first impressions and being up to date or old, whatever, it has to be understood. You cannot control another person. This is going to be a theme in today's lesson from Christ. It's beyond your control. I heard this morning, I was picking up some stuff at the store, 2 people talking ahead of me, and one said to the other, well, today's not a day for counting points. That refers to an old Weight Watchers program. And everything was assigned a certain number of points, like everything, pumpkin, everything. But today, these 2 people were not going to be counting points. I guess calories are not applicable on Thanksgiving Sunday. And I want to tell you, I think they're right. But I don't think that's what Jesus was talking about. We could ask him when we get to the next life, what do you think about points, After we talked to him about broccoli and spiders. But Jesus is also, just like with clothing, this is not about food insecurity. It's about that very basic, when we worry. So you realize that this is Christ's teaching, so it's not at a superficial level at all. It's food in the very deepest sense of the word. Think of our place. Think of the many ways they feed their family. They, of course, at the most superficial level, provide food, nurture. That's the superficial. The deepest feeding they have is that they're called family, that they build community, that their names are known, that they're cared for. This is food, is it not, for our spirits? So when we're part of a support network that includes supporting our place, we are offering the deepest spiritual food there is. We see you. We care. This is not about points or if we can have cream pie. The next one he talks about is our lifespan. It's a very, very famous quote, even for people who don't believe anything to do with any religion or philosophy of life, which is that question, can you add any time to your life by worrying? I think that was kind of an ironic question from our Lord, but it's also, in fact, a tremendous stimulus to say, actually, the more we worry, we can actually shorten our lifespan, can't we? So that's the ironic twist on that one. And finally, Jesus says about tomorrow. The grip of tomorrow and yesterday, eh? He says, today has enough trouble all of its own. And I think that some days we could wake up listing what those troubles are. And Jesus says, don't go into tomorrow, because that's so anxiety-provoking. Don't try to change yesterday, because that's a place of regret. But just live in today. So what can help us live in today? One of the things Dr. Wally Lazaruk has talked about in many of his presentations here is to acknowledge that we are all part of the human family. How we're feeling is probably how most people would feel in that situation. We're not particularizing for ourselves. We're one of many in the human family. I find this to be tremendously good news. We're one of the human family, and most people would respond just about the same way we are responding ourselves. So how do we find a way to help us move our brains, direct our minds towards a more positive attitude that's authentic and believable for ourselves? We've talked many times about the power of gratitude lists, right? Neuroplasticity, how we can change our own brains by what we think about and what we demand of our brains day after day. That's the power of a gratitude list. You know, they're using them now in schools in some places, especially in schools in difficult neighborhoods where kids are coming in hard lives, that their teachers spend time every day helping the children to find something within themselves, within their life, to be grateful for. The children interviewed at the end of the school year talk about it as being the greatest thing they were given that year. So if it's working there, it probably can work for us too. So if we can repeat that over again, whatever it is that's working in our lives, and put it down over and over again, our brain will respond. Jesus then reminds us, looking at the gifts around us from nature. Now, this may be feeling harder for us, but soon we're going to have communion. And this. Can you see that that's pink glass? Does that show up if I do that? So this glass is made out of ash from Mount St. Helens. And when Mount St. Helens blew in the spring, I guess, or early summer of 1980, can you remember that? I'm told that there was ash here. Did you have that? Wow, I mean, I was in northern Saskatchewan. We didn't have ash there. But at the time, a huge portion of that mountain was blown into air. I believe lives were lost. And at the time, people thought it's going to take generations before there's any grass growing there, before there are any trees, any plants that will hear a bird on Mount St. Helens. But in fact, that is not the truth. There are plants there now. Next Sunday, we're going to be talking about that. They're called places of refuge, refugia, little tiny nooks and crannies where the ash didn't kill everything. And from those little tiny places, new life comes. It's images like that that help us when we're searching for gratitude in a world like we live in. We're searching to find and be those places of refuge, like that glass is right there. We've talked other times about taking a photo a day, not to post on Instagram, although of course that's possible, but just to say, consider the birds of the air, consider the lilies of the field, consider the grass on Quadra Street. What can we authentically say we're grateful for? And if you don't have a camera, if you don't have your phone, just take the moment and focus. Let that photo speak to your heart. And when you do that, immerse yourself in today, because that's Christ's final biggest teaching. Tomorrow will have its own troubles. Yesterday had its own troubles. Live today. We've said it before, but most of us live in a today sandwich. Great big slice of tomorrow, little tiny bit of today, great big slice of yesterday. When we bite in, all we taste is yesterday and tomorrow. So Jesus is inviting us to find a gentle path to today, a gentle path using our bodies, our spirits, our souls, to find a way to be grateful for ourselves, for each other, and for, yes, the beauty of the lilies of the field, the birds of the air, the fish of the sea, and the insects in the ground beneath our feet. May it be so for us.